Yo, how's it going? I'm going to show you some cool Nostr shit. I'm building an API right now for Nostr, and if there's one good thing about it is it's completely serverless, and if there's two good things about it, it's completely serverless and it's built for data scientists, or I'm building it towards the spec of data scientists. So in this video, I'm going to show you like some of the stuff that you can do with it already in terms of from the data science perspective. This is like a quick sneak preview. There's a little word cloud there that I built, and that was like inspired by a lot of the data scientists and a lot of the people that are now working on or AI, these LangChain grifters. They would have started out working with the Twitter API. Twitter has a fantastic API for doing data analysis. This was me back in 2015, looking at some analysis of Mayweather-Pacquiao's fight, where people were tweeting from, what they were talking about. Like, so that's the kind of stuff that inspired this API. I'll also talk about what's going on behind the hood with the API. So I'll give a rundown about that, and then I'll also show you how to deploy it. It looks complicated, but it's quick as shit to deploy. You don't really need to know anything about AWS. Anyways, it's a serverless API. I've only got two endpoints configured so far. One of them is to fetch a bunch of data, and another one is to verify that you're connected. Fetch data looks like this. You hit this fetch notes endpoint. You feed it in right now. You feed it in what relays you want to hit and what users you want to get. This is just after returning. It returns a nice object here with the time that a bunch of posts were created, as long as what content is in them, as well as like what ID is in them. I haven't nailed down the final abstractions yet. I'm going to add more. Let's say this is going to be richer in terms of data. We're like pre-alpha right now. Again, this is all going to be open sourced. But this data is in a really nice format for doing data science with, just like the old Twitter API was. And I'm not even going to talk about social graph stuff here. Facebook used to have it so that you could like query your followers and the followers of your followers and do some really cool shit around visualizing like what your social network looks like, where you sat in it, and like how much of a hub or a spoke and stuff like that you were. Like real serious AI, not this generative AI bullshit that you're seeing is taking off right now. All these hype merchants stealing money from VCs. Anyways, I'm going to give a demo of what it looks like to work with the AI, or with the fucking API. Sorry, mixing up my words. I've got a clean Twitter or Studio environment right now. Let me just set myself up. So why would we want an API at all? Like, why can't we just directly query relays with OR? You could do that, but there's a lot of lift involved there. Maybe you want to build an OR library. Again, there's a lot of lift. A data scientist doesn't want to have to configure their machine. They don't want to make sure that all of these dependencies are installed. Moreover, it's like, let them focus on the data science, and people who know closer to what's going on with the metal and what's going on in the back end, let them do the back end. You shouldn't need to mix and match as well. Like if I'm using a browser-based IDE, I tried to do this demo in Replit, but Replit doesn't allow you as much ability to customize. So I switched back to RStudio, which is like a sweet IDE for doing our work. But if I want to do browser-based shit, that's all to say, it's really handy having an API that I can hit, that I don't really need complicated dependencies, don't need GCC, or don't need any of that stuff. If you know, you know. So I built a quick and dirty wrapper that makes hitting the endpoints really streamlined. Basically, this is how I hit the endpoint that I'd set up there. I feed it in the base URL, which is like the HTTPS, blah, 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 blah. I feed it the relays I want to hit. I feed it the authors that I want to hit, like basically the people I want to filter in and out. And I'll go through it. So let me just walk through what the script looks like. Boom, boom, boom. Setting up my parameters, like my my environment variables. I'm going to hit this endpoint. Oh, shit. You know what? I actually spun up a different API in the meantime. So I was playing around this, then I deleted my, oh shit. I deleted all of the cloud resources, and every time you spin it up new, it creates new stuff at random. Let me go back to OR. So I need to rename this the correct endpoint, and we'll get going again. Boom. So slightly different base URL. Error handling could be improved. Again, I'm hitting the API now, which is in turn hitting all of these relays, fetching all of the information, all of the data, and then my API wrapper is putting it in a nice format to work in with RStudio. So this is the data that comes back. It has the Nostr notes ID, it has the content in terms of text, and it has when it's published. Again, I'll have it richer in terms of the fields that it's bringing back. Now that I've got that data, that's my hex that's currently I'm working with, and this is the frequency of the amount of grifting I've been doing on Nostr. So again, I first started hearing about it just at the end of last year. I was on there a lot, and then over time I've been on there a little bit less, but checking in on it every now and again. Odell is a different person. He's got a slightly different profile. So let me just rerun this analysis for Odell just to show you what his profile looks like in terms of how frequently he's been using Nostr. And it's just running there in the background. Okay, this is what his profile looks like. So I'm guessing he might have, at the start of March, maybe he created a new public key, but his usage was declining, and for some reason then it picked up. I'm not sure. Maybe it was something to do with blue ticks. But these are basic frequency plots. This is all really basic. Once you start learning about doing natural language processing, one of the very, very, very first tutorials that you'll do is a word cloud. I'm using the ggplot library, so I said I'd plot some GG data, and this is what a word cloud looks like. It's just like, what are the most frequent words, and how can we visualize them? Some really basic stuff, but you learn the basics of scraping data from an API, manipulating it. Those are the building blocks. Those are the foundations for becoming a data scientist. Next, you move on to sentiment analysis or something like that, topic modeling. Maybe you move on to neural networks. But again, there's a shit ton of tutorials out there on the internet for the Twitter API, and nobody who's learning about natural language processing is forking out $100 a month just to have access to the API. It's behind a walled garden. But if I can build this serverless API to good specs, it'll be almost like a lift and drop. We can use all of the old tutorials. We can basically replace Twitter with Nostr data, and maybe new people come up and coming, the future generation of ML, AI, data scientists, whatever word you want to put on it, are using Nostr data, are using the free social graph information you get off of Nostr, some sick data analysis. My master's thesis was on information spreading on social networks, and the group I was in, we were looking at memes and how they would spread. There's some serious heavy lifting maths going on there. It's pretty fun to play around with, but it's also high impact. And that's the kind of use case. As I build out the API, I'm going to add more functionality to the current endpoints, and I'm going to build out more endpoints that allow stuff like fetching followers and looking at follower counts and all of that stuff. I'll build a bunch of functionality on top of this. But for now, this is what it's like. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to work with, to deploy. Again, let me show you what the actual image. Sorry, I'm jumping around because I'm sharing over Zoom. and it's tough to navigate all of the screens. But again, Amazon, it's all Amazon based, serverless. So when it's not running, it's not running. It'll auto scale. If you want to put a paywall in front of this, create your own API, have at it. Maybe you want to optimize this part of the API, constantly hitting relays to get your data. That's not efficient. You should be caching. A more optimal solution would be caching, but that only makes sense if you get a certain scale. But anyways, this is all deployed in AWS, completely serverless. CloudFormation template is used to deploy it. So it's cheap as chips and it's easy as shit to set up. I've got a README going. This README is out of date. There used to be this many instructions. I'm removing, let's say, the first half of this because I've moved some stuff over. Essentially, what you got to do is you got to create a Docker image, build a Docker image. I've written the API already. It's a Flask API. Build a Docker image, upload the Docker image to AWS, and then click run on the deployment. I'm going to show you what that looks like. If I can find my terminal tab. Okay. So let me just delete the existing stack, the existing API. I'm deleting that. That's gone now. If you were doing this yourself, all of the instructions are here. You would log in to your AWS account via your terminal. So you need to set up an AWS account, but anyone can do that. Docker is free. So you build your Docker image. I've already done that. You give it a tag. You upload it onto AWS. Or sorry, you create an ECR, a place for that Docker image to live on AWS. Then you push the Docker image onto AWS, and then you deploy your stack, and that's it. So now that I've deleted the old stack, this old API isn't going to work anymore. I'm going to get an error when I hit it. Can't resolve the name. So that API no longer exists. And I'm going to deploy a new stack. There's a couple of parameters that you use. I've got right now it's taking a private key as one of the parameters. Obviously, that's not best practice. I'll strip that away. I'm using it for testing purposes. That's not my private key. It belongs to this gentleman here who's a serverless tester. It's just a test account. But when I clicked deploy, it's automatically creating all of the resources in the cloud. It's configuring the IAM permissions. It's doing all that shit for you. You don't need to manage anything. You just need to click deploy and it'll deploy it. You're welcome. And again, this is all open, or it's not open sourced yet, but it will be open sourced as soon as I make it stable enough to be released and to not look like shit. I'm working with Kevin Bolger on this as well. I'll give him a tag in the video. He's the AWS architect wizard that's helping me out. So it takes a while to deploy. It's working in the background, spinning up an API gateway, spinning up the Lambda, connecting the API gateway to the Lambda, to the ECR. It looks like it's done now. So we're done. It's after creating a new endpoint. So I have a different command to give me what the new endpoint is. I'm going to copy that new endpoint, and I've got a verify. I've got a verify endpoint here, and I'm going to hit this. Take a second. When I hit this new endpoint, okay, that's after sending. I got a 200 back. When I hit this new, let's say, base URL with this endpoint, my mate here, my tester, tweets out or drops a note on a message. I'm going to refresh here just to show it. Okay, so there you see 18 seconds ago. Obviously, I can work on this. Anyone will be, you as a data scientist, you'll be able to automatically kind of tweet or do plots. You'll be automatically able to, you'll be able to schedule any analysis you do. You'll get it to automatically deploy to to Nostr, you'll be able to do some cool stuff. So it's a cool resource for working with data scientists. It could be hacked, it could be worked as well. It doesn't need to be for data scientists. If you think there's another use case, get on to me. Maybe we can build it in. I need help. So if you want to work with me on this, like, reach out. I need more people, need more warm bodies, whatever you got. If you got time, if you got ideas, reach out to me. Other than that, it's been real. I would say stay humble and stack sats. Yeah.